Hey everybody, what's going on? Today I want to spend some time talking with you guys about Arena. Arena is still a big problem for a lot of players in the game, and 3v3 is no different because 3v3 is no different. It's the same thing as Arena, just 3 times. So if you're having a hard time with your one team in Arena getting into gold, you are almost certainly sitting in bronze in 3v3 with no hope of climbing up anytime soon. And a lot of the time, it's not an issue of what you have at your disposal. It's an issue of understanding, which is understandable. This stuff, there's a lot to learn in these games. Everything's hard till you know it is something you hear me say a lot if you watch my videos. So don't feel discouraged if you've been struggling in Arena, even if you've been playing for a while, right? There's a lot to learn. There's a lot to take in. There's a lot of different looks in Arena, and it can be hard to get a grasp on. So what I want to do today is try to simplify it as much as possible so that you can take concepts and go into your own champ box and your own artifacts and put together some things that are going to help you climb. It's actually a lot more simple than you think. So we're gonna do our best to break it down. Now, before I get into that, I want to show you, I was initially going to give examples of champions for every specific thing that I talked about, and in some cases I will name them, but what I think is much more efficient for both of us is if I direct you to Hell Hades' website. I'm going to show you how to navigate to a portion of his website where you can search champs based on what they do. So when I talk about turn meter boosters, I'm going to tell you how to search for turn meter boosters. When I talk about attack buffers and AoE defense down and nukers and all these different things, I'm going to show you on the screen in a second how to navigate to all these things, so that rather than me sit here and list a bunch of champs or try to make all these graphics to put on the screen, you can just go hunt them down. So if you're newer to the game and you're not sure which champs do what and which ones you should be keeping an eye out for, that can help you get sorted. Maybe you've got someone in your champ box that you don't know does a certain thing. So real quick, I'm going to hop over, I'm going to show you how to navigate to that part, and then we're going to get back to this. Okay, so we're on the main site. We're on Hell Hades' homepage, right? If you just scroll down on the side, on most tabs you end up in, you'll see this, Raid Shadow Legends Quick Links. You've got auras, buff, debuff, and instance. Instance are things like turn meter boost, turn meter reduction, things of that nature, right? Stripping. Buffs are the blue ones that are positive for someone. Debuffs are the red ones that are negative. That's just very basic in case we have any very new players here watching. So, for example, if I say increase turn meter champs, if I say turn meter boost, however I phrase it, you're looking for an instant and you're looking for increased turn meter. You'll click increase turn meter, and here you'll have it. Increase turn meter team by 30%. It breaks it down by who it affects and how good it is. So 30% full team, these are the champs that do it. 25% full team, these are the champs that do it. So on and so on and so on, right? So you can find what's fitting for you or who you have in either category. And once you get that sorted out, you can come back over, you can look for your strippers, you can look for your defense down. Again, anything that I talk about, I'm gonna refer you over here a lot. I would recommend that you come in here and make an account. I'm gonna put a link below in the pinned comment and the description. I would make an account here. You can get the optimizer, import all your champs in, start using the optimizer. There are a ton of tools that, again, I'm going to reference quite a few times that are on this website. It's a killer resource for the community, a lot of helpful tools. So I'll link it below. You can come over here, make you an account, and get to it. It's going to help you a lot. That's it. I just wanted to show you how to do that real quick. Let's get back to it and start talking about the teams. All right, so the first thing, again, you need to understand that is that this is not that complicated. So I know that it might feel overwhelming. I know that it might feel like there's been a lot going on. We're going to break it down into the simplest form we can. There's really only 2 types of teams that you need to understand right now. Once you start getting up into high gold 4 and platinum, it gets a lot more complicated than what I'm about to talk about. But for anybody that's clicked this video, more than likely, you're the person I'm talking to, okay? There's only 2 types of teams you need to understand. If you understand these 2 types of teams, you're going to be fine. My free-to-play is in gold 4. Really only utilizing these 2 types of teams. My main account's in gold 4. Even with all these crazy champs at my disposal, right? All these void Legos and all these different things, I'm really only running 2 types of teams, right? So the first one we're going to talk about is probably the most popular team in any game like this you've ever played. If there's a game that has Arena and it's a similar format, they are running what's called a Cleave Composition. Cleave Compositions are designed to get in and out quickly. There's a general format, and in this game there's a few variations of it, and we'll talk a little bit about that, but I'm going to talk most about the concepts, what's required for the team, and how it works, and then things you need to understand about it, okay? So, Cleave Comp. When we go into Arena, real quick, let's go ahead and take a look. We'll go ahead and refresh our list. You're going to see, probably, a few examples of this. Again, there's a few variations of it, and sometimes you'll see people that don't quite know exactly the most efficient way to build a cleave, but Arbiter in the lead is a strong indication you're looking at a Cleave Comp, right? Now, I'm in Gold 4. You're probably going to see a little bit more synergy up here than you see down in Bronze and Silver, and we're going to talk a little bit more about those things shortly, but let's see what we've got here. We've got our booster, we've got our stripper, we've got our nuker, we've got our interrupter, right? We've got our booster, we've got our nukers, we've got our reviver. That's an interesting setup. We've got our booster, we've got our second booster, we've got our resetter, we've got our nuker. You see a theme, right? We've got our booster, attack buffer, our defense down. Some champs fill multiple roles, and that's another thing that we'll talk about shortly. But you'll see a lot of this. You'll see a lot of people running cleaves as their defense, which is a dangerous thing to do conceptually. If you're operating under the assumption that everybody knows what they're doing, you probably don't want to run a cleave as your defense, because a cleave is not that hard to counter once you understand a little bit about the concept of different types of compositions, rather than just throwing your scariest champs into the mix and hoping they do well. Understanding how to put together a team that has some synergy and works with each other and against the enemy, rather than just being big and scary void legendaries, you know what I mean? Just throwing your Krisk in a team because you have a Krisk isn't really going to do you as much as understanding how to build a team of even epics and rares. So that's what we're going to try to accomplish with this video. Things about the cleave, things you need to understand about the cleave. Cleave compositions need an attack bar booster. They generally are going to have an attack buffer. You are going to want an AoE defense down champ, and then you're going to want to have your nuker. If you can get a stripper in the mix, that's ideal. That's why Madame Ceras is such a sought-after champion, because she strips all the buffs off the enemy team and then puts AoE defense down on all of them, and then an attack down just as extra sand in the eyes. Madame Ceras is ridiculous. She should really be a legendary. She is the cream of the crop, right? You've got Arbiter, who's queen bee of the attack bar boosters. You've got Madame Ceras, who's queen bee of the strippers and AoE defense down champs, right? She's absolutely insane. Again, if you want more examples of champs that do these things, head over to the site and check them out. Earlier in the game, if you're new right now, you're getting that new champ, that simple champ. He's got an AoE defense down. If not, you can go into the campaign, head over to stage 10, I believe it is. No, not 10. 9? 9. And farm a War Maiden. She's a rare, booked up. She has a 100% chance to place a defense down on all enemies, and that means she just needs to pass the accuracy check. There's no, it's going to proc every time. You just have to have enough accuracy to land it. She's fantastic. She is very common in the earlier game and can be effective. If you're running a cleave and you've got decent speed and you're picking your battles wisely, you can run her in Gold 4, right? It's a matter of knowing how to use your cleave. So that's the general bare bones idea of a cleave composition. You might hear the term blender. It's the same idea. It's a little bit different. Blender is a booster, an ally attack champ, and generally 2 AoE A1 champs. So like Skullcrown and Sinesha, you'll see a lot. You'll see something like Arbiter, Farrakhan, or Longbeard with Skullcrown and Sinesha. And it's just basically a faster cleave. It's designed to do what a cleave does, but even faster than a cleave does it. Because a cleave ultimately is designed for speed farming. You're not really supposed to run it as a defense, again, because it's so easily countered, especially now. It used to be harder to counter. Now there's just so many champs at everybody's disposal that it's really not that hard to counter a cleave. So really you want to use it as your quick farmer, to grind your Great Hall, to climb arena quickly, things of that nature. So that's the basics of a cleave. Real quick, I had to jump in and interrupt myself. There's one more really important thing about a cleave composition, and that's speed tuning. You need to be tightly tuned enough so that the enemy team can't cut in. I'm sure you've encountered it if you have an Arbiter or whoever your booster is. They do the boost, and then before the rest of your team gets a turn, the enemy team gets a turn. And maybe they're tightly tuned. Maybe it's another cleave, or maybe it's someone who can stun you or kill your nuker or reset your turn meter, and you end up losing the fight. It's really frustrating, and it's pretty easily avoidable once you understand understand tuning, speed tuning. Blanked out for a second there. So there's two ways to get to where I'm going to show you. I'm going to show you how to get here through Hell Hades website because that's where I've already sent you. But you can also just go to deadwoodjedi.com. But up here, Raid Shadow Legends tab, click Arena Calculator. It's going to bring you to this page, and you're going to click Visit Arena Calculator on Deadwood Jedi's site. You can also just go to deadwoodjedi.com and click Arena Calculator. Killer resource, again, for the community. Clan Boss Calculator is insane. There's a lot of really good resources on this website, too, so if you haven't been here for some reason, come check it out. I'm going to show you real quick the basics of this. I'm not going to run through the whole thing. It's not going to be a full tutorial on it. I just want you to get a quick idea of how it works. So up here, we've got our speed aura champ. For this situation, we're going to say we have an arbiter. So we've got our 30% speed aura bonus. Our fastest champ is going to be arbiter. Let's say she's at 250. Slower arbiter, we'll do earlier game stuff. Let's say she's got 3 speed sets and you did put Lore of Steel on her, right? So with her speed lead and with these things in mind, this is her actual speed, okay? Second champion, let's say we have a Madam Ceras. And oh, I forgot this part right here. Next to arbiter, you want her to use her A3 because that's her boost, right? So that means that Madam Ceras needs to be this speed to be guaranteed to not get cut, okay? So probably want to go ahead and just round up to 192 instead of trying to calculate all these things. And then you go down the list and you pick your third champ, and it'll tell you what the minimum speed needs to be. You know, let's say whoever it is, Abyssal. So she'll need to be 200, and so on, right? That's how you tune your team so that they don't get cut. Really important to do. I would recommend coming over here and checking out this calculator. And you're going to see those a lot. Even up in Gold 4, you saw how many people were running cleaves. You're probably going to see similar in bronze and silver. But you're also probably going to see a lot less synergy. You might see a lot of gold borders. You might see a lot of legendaries. You might see a lot of scary-looking champs. It doesn't mean they're good teams, and that's what we're going to talk about today. Another important thing to keep in mind with the cleave is that your team power is not going to really generally be that high. If we look at my cleave, for example, 185,000. Most of the teams that I encounter up here are going to be significantly higher than that. But I would still beat most of them, right? Because team power is not really that important. Team power, you can pad your team power with a lot of resistance. You know what I mean? Team power is not always a reliable measure of what you're looking at. Again, higher level, it's a good measure of how much resistance, how much accuracy. Those guys up in platinum pay attention to different things because everything works so differently up there. Down here where we are, it's pretty basic. Your cleave can wipe out teams of much higher team power, so don't get too caught up in that team power stuff. That's not super important, okay? Countering cleave compositions is, again, going to be important because you're going to be seeing a lot of them. So that's going to lead us into the second type of team we're talking about. Right off the bat, there are some examples of champions that can help you counter cleaves that don't require a lot of knowledge or understanding. Tormund is probably, in the same way that I said Arbiter was Queen Bee of the boosters and Ceras was Queen Bee of the strippers, which is a funny phrase. Tormund is probably the king of Cleave Interrupter. If an enemy gets turn meter, if they get a buff, if they get healed, he has potential to freeze them. It is such a nuisance. It is so hard to deal with. On my free-to-play, I run Duchess, Tormund, Ignatius, Godseeker, and they don't lose very many fights because I pick my fights wisely. I go in and try to fight cleaves, and Tormund almost always comes in clutch. So he's a fantastic example. Valkyrie has the ability to interrupt cleaves. Astralon has the ability in some ways to interrupt cleaves. Yoshi can interrupt cleaves. There's quite a few champs. Again, this would be something I would recommend that you go to the site and look up. Look up like decreased turn meter champs under the instance tab, things of that nature. So that's one way to do it, is interrupting a cleave. Another way to do it is just with pure survivability, right? Just pure tankiness, heavy shield sets, bringing in revives can be helpful, things like that. Just outlasting the cleave, because once a cleave blows their load, they're done, right? Then they've got to wait on their cooldowns, unless it's a Chimar, and then they get to go again. But we're talking about anecdotal things now. Once a cleave has that first turn, they're done and vulnerable. So if you survive it and you're not crowd controlled and you've got a little bit of sustain that could get your team back into the fight, you're going to be in good shape, right? And that leads us into talking about the second type of team that we need to understand, which is referred to as a Bruise Composition. You'll hear it also called a go second team a lot. Bruise is, in its simplest form, designed to absorb a cleave. Absorb a cleave is what I'm trying to say. And bully enemy teams down, right? So it's to catch that first wave of a cleave and then just bully them down over the next few turns, or bully down teams that just don't have synergy. Those teams we've been talking about that just have scary champions in them but don't really work together to accomplish anything. They're just there to be scary. Bruise compositions can also be really good about taking care of those teams as well. So something to keep in mind about Bruise comps, what you need to understand is it's tanky champs, it's your support champs, it's your defense champs, champs that buffs that are good for protection, like defense buffs, strengthen, ally protection, reflect damage even, counterattack can be really nice, things like that, right? You want to have some heals. If you can get revives in there, that's why champs like Duchess and Sifi are so aggravating. Raglan, Ugo, Rector Drath. Again, you can head over to the website and find champs that do that. And then having resistance in the mix is not a bad idea. We are going to hop in a second, and I'm going to show you my favorite team that I run. It's a Bruise composition. Actually, we'll go ahead and hop in and get them rolling now. And let's find a cleave. Let's find a team that should be scary for them to go against. This one's risky, but we're going to give it a shot anyway and hope it goes well. We're going to just see if we can just absorb the cleave here with our Bruise. We lost our Seeker, which is less than ideal, but I don't think it's going to be a big deal. Seeker was there to help us survive the first hit with his passive, to be honest, and his shield set. We're fine. I think we're going to be fine here. Sandlash is going to get her turn in a second, and it's going to be real bad for him. Because there are some sneaky ways to work some damage into your Bruiser team as well. Yeah, and Lissandra's not going to solo us. So that's the idea there, right? It's a tanky... Seeker comes in with a shield set, which is really nice for a Bruise comp to absorb more of that first hit. We've got Valkyrie, who's bringing in more shields and counterattack. We've got Lydia doing all the insane things Lydia does. And then we've got Sandlashed, one, for insurance with her passive, and two, because you can get some heavy damage out of Sandlashed, right? If we go to our recently used, take a look at her. She's very slow because we've got a passive that puts up block damage. So the slower she is, the longer the block damage is up, the more she can technically be absorbing damage that with the ally protect she may put on the team, but she's not actually taking any damage, right? She's a really cool champ in that respect. So she's really fun. We got a lot of damage on her. I'd like more crit rate, but this is the build we ended up with. Stack resistance. You'll notice a theme: resistance, resistance, resistance. It's not platinum numbers, but it's been enough for me to comfortably be in gold 4, right? And that's what it does. They're designed to take that first hit and then just win over time, right? Because now the whole team's out of whack. Their cooldowns probably aren't going to work in order again. Everybody's probably on different cooldowns. It's just not going to sync back up. It's going to be hard for them to win if they can't kill us on the first turn, right? There's a lot of different ways to go about doing this. I have another comp as well, if you may have seen it. Let's see. In my 3v3 defenses, let's take a look at what we're running here. We've got this one, which is sort of a hybrid, right? We've got Kandrafan for some damage, but then we've got Duchess for insurance, and she synergizes really well with Kandrafan. And then we've got Tormund to interrupt anybody that might come in and try to cleave us. And then we've got Ceras to keep buffs off the enemy team and set Kandrafan up to do damage. So this is a little bit of a hybrid, right? It's a little bit of like a Bruise, Cleave, Interrupter style with an actual damage dealer in it, or just an actual pure attack champ in it. And then this bottom one is another example of just a nuisance of a Bruise team, right? We've got Nekrit, who is among the better arena champs in the game. Coronar and Manaya, insane duo, right? And then Angar, who is really good about lockdown and counterattacks and provokes. So it's a lot of protective buffs. It's a lot of crowd control. It's a lot of tankiness. It's a lot of survivability. It's the ability to be in long fights and still win. So whether it's a cleave and we're trying to absorb that first shot, or it's a team that just doesn't have synergy, but maybe it's scary champs like Krisk and you know what I mean? Some of these scarier champs that maybe you're unsure about trying to cleave, you can come in and bruise them down over time if you have more synergy, right? If you have the right synergy to deal with whatever scary champs they may have in their lineup, that's going to be really good for you. Some ways to deal with a Bruise Comp. If you see Bruise Comps in your lineup, if you get to a point where you start seeing those pop up, some good ways to deal with that are blocking buffs, blocking cooldown skills. Heavy single target damage dealers can be nice. It's more difficult to AoE nuke a Bruise team, but if you've got someone like a Shamel or a Faceless or some of these really heavy single target hitters that you can set up with Savage, or maybe some that even ignore defense like Faceless does, you can pretty much one-shot anybody in the game. So you pick your targets accordingly, and you get the problematic champs out, right? If there's a Duchess, you can one-shot a Duchess with a Faceless or a Shamel. Single target, ignore defense. The more that you can get, the more you can pick them apart, right? And then think about things that might prevent them from doing the things that are problematic for you. So again, like block buffs, block cooldown skills, having a lot of speed to cycle around them. Most of the time, Bruise Comps aren't going to be that fast. Sometimes you get a little caught off guard. I think one of the nice things about the Bruise Comp I run is that they're faster than I think people might be anticipating, so they can't really run laps around me, which is nice. So that's one way to do it. But trying to go in and cleave a Bruise, unless you've just got a really monster powerhouse of a Trunda or something like that, can be tough, right? A little tougher. They're probably going to have resistance. They're probably going to have shield. They're probably going to be really tanky. You run the risk of blowing that load too early, and then you're going to be screwed. So single target nukes are a little bit of a safer way to go about doing it if you have them. And that's it, really. That's, if you understand those two types of teams, if you can build those teams and run them effectively, if you can take all those things we've talked about and apply them to whatever you've got going on in your champ box, and you understand those two teams, if you know how to run them, you know how to pick your battles, and you know how to counter those two things, even basically conceptually, you're going to be able to climb into gold if you've got any amount of time in the game, right? If you've popped enough shards and have a decent champ pool, even decent, you can do it with epics and rares, right? It doesn't have to be Lydia and Valkyrie. It can be other things. You can do that. You can climb into golden arena, and you can begin to build additional teams to stack in a 3v3 to work your way out of that bronze and silver hill of 3v3. 3v3 is a pain, dude. It really is. It's a really aggravating place to be, and it's not interesting. That's what really sucks about it, is that it's not any more interesting than Arena. It's literally just Arena 3 times in a row. So it's not even fun. But it is mandatory, right? If you're going to work through your missions, you're going to have to get up there. So that is everything for this video, I think. We can do more videos like this. If this was helpful for any of you guys, let me know in the comments. If you want to hear some more about maybe some different types of teams, we can start talking more about specific champions that are problematic, like a Tormund, like a Hegemon, some of these champs that you see and you just avoid across the board because they're just so problematic and seem like they're very hard to counter. There are ways to counter these champs, and it's not too difficult, and you don't have to have crazy champs to do it. So if you want to see some videos about countering some of these specific champs, I'll be happy to put those together. And yeah, let me know. Let me know in the comments how you're feeling about that. If you don't want to bother at all, I do have a Patreon, and it's where I do all my account work from. So if you want me to log in and sort some of this stuff out for you, I'll have links below for that as well. You can hop into my Discord and see the breakdown of my Patreon tiers, and then pick the tier that's right for you. Tier 1, I will hop in and do reviews. I will point you in the right direction with things. Tier 2, I'll do a little bit of building. And then Tier 3, I'll kind of just do whatever you need done. Again, the information's in the Discord if you want to take a look at that and think about signing up for the Patreon, or if you just want to support me. That's an option too. Spots are limited. I do try to keep the spots limited so that it doesn't get out of hand. I want to make sure I can take care of everybody that's a member. So I add spots over time as I make sure that I can stay on top of it. I believe there are a few spots available right now, though. So check that out if you're interested. Other than that, I hope that this helped. If you have any questions, ask me below. Between me and the community, we'll help you out in the comments. You can come catch me while I'm streaming, twitch.tv/JGigs. Between me and the community, we'll help you out there. You can join my Discord. I'm in there. The community is also really helpful in there. Great community all around, man. So between me or someone else, we will get you sorted out. And that's it. I do hope it was helpful. I appreciate you guys watching. We'll see you later.